Welcome to India and England News. Our guest today is going to be Dr. Tom Sherman. He is a state senator in New Hampshire and also running for the governor of New Hampshire from the Democratic Party. Many of you might know that how important role New Hampshire plays in the national and presidential elections. To just give a quick glimpse here, 1/3 of the voters are Republican, 1/3 are Democrats, and 1/3 are independent. And here, even one vote can make a big, massive difference here. So do not forget to vote on election day next month here. Before we get Senator Sherman here, and our guest today is Latha Mangipudi. She is a state rep here in New Hampshire. First, we are going to talk a little bit about the South Asians here in the state, and then she is going to introduce Dr. Sherman. Latha, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Welcome to our home, and this is a great opportunity. We have less than 17 days for our midterm election, which is a very phenomenal, consequential election. In New Hampshire, I want to make sure I give you a little bit of statistics from 2020 election, 2020 census showed that South Asian population in New Hampshire has really blossomed or boomed. And we have over 30,000 plus. 30,000. So that is a huge...
Especially in a state whose population is 1.4 million.
1.4 million. And before, I used to say Nashua was the most diverse city, and we had about 6% of 90,000 was Indian American. Just imagine now, we are 86% white in New Hampshire, and the minority population have increased. And we have an absolute power of vote to elect the right candidate to the right leadership role in New Hampshire. So that's why I'm so critical. And thank you for coming in a short period. And so if every South Asian in New Hampshire goes out and votes for Dr. Tom Sherman for governor,
he will win.
He will win with not just a margin, but a resounding margin where there is no doubt in anybody's mind that the election was anyway not valid. So I am pleading, I am requesting every single South Asian that is out there who are eligible to vote, please register. You can register on the same day at the polls, and also make sure we use the power of vote to put the right candidate. And leadership under Dr. Tom Sherman would be a game changer for me.
Excellent. Latha, welcome, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming and interviewing me.
Actually, it's a pleasure here. Now, if elected, you will be the first physician governor here in New Hampshire.
That's right.
And also you are already one of the very physicians in the politics here as well.
Right. I'm the only doctor in the Senate. And when I started out in the House, I was the only actively practicing doctor in the House.
So how the healthcare is going to play if you become a governor? How important is the healthcare?
Well, healthcare is critical. You know, one of the top issues nationally and in New Hampshire right now is a woman's choice. And as a doctor, I believe that's between her and her doctor, not the government to get involved in. So making sure that the women of New Hampshire have the protections of Roe versus Wade, I believe is correct, not only from what is the civil rights part of it, but really from the healthcare side, because there's no way people can guess what all the possible problems are that can happen during pregnancy, all the possible situations that a woman has to deal with. And she has to have the freedom to make those healthcare decisions with her provider.
Okay. So now you are running against a governor who has been governor here for 3 times. His father was also governor here. His brother was in Washington, D.C., I think, a senator from New Hampshire.
Right.
That's a family which is completely ingrained here in politics. What is his position on the issue of abortion? and the women's rights.
He has bragged about putting in place the first abortion ban in modern history in New Hampshire. He said, I've done more. This is him. He has done more for the pro-life movement than any governor in the history of New Hampshire. And he said that the other part that's really critical to understand is that he has said that he will not rule out further restrictions on abortion. And we know that in the House of Representatives, 85% of Republicans moved forward a 6-week abortion ban. So this is a governor who has shown over and over again that he won't stand up to the extremists in the legislature. And those extremists are trying to push for a 6-week abortion ban. And I have no doubt that he would sign that.
Okay. So now you have been a successful physician and a great career there in healthcare. What made you get into politics?
Well, actually, it's interesting because what made me get into politics was education. Mm-hmm. The very first, what's called scholarship or voucher program was introduced in 2011 in New Hampshire. And I feel that public schools are the core of our community, that we have to fully embrace them and make sure a child anywhere in the state of New Hampshire has access to a great public school education. But that's not what these voucher programs are about. They're taking public money, taking them from the public schools, and they want to give them to private and religious schools. And so that's what inspired me to get started. But shortly after I got started in 2013, once I had been elected, the state of New Hampshire was pushing back on the Affordable Care Act, and was saying, we don't want Medicaid expansion. And I was a part of making sure that we accepted Medicaid expansion, which is the expansion of healthcare coverage. And in New Hampshire, it meant 50,000 people received healthcare coverage. It's been the backbone of our approach to mental health and substance use disorder or addiction.
So what are some of your other priorities here in New Hampshire?
Well, energy is a huge priority. Mm-hmm. So we are so far behind Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all of the New England states. We are so far behind them in embracing renewable technology that we don't even fit on the same graph as those states. And now, when with what's happening in Ukraine and that huge demand for natural gas and oil, we are actually, granite staters are paying the price. We're paying the price for Sununu having blocked virtually every effort to expand our energy options. And oh, by the way, besides the fact that it expands our energy options, keeps our costs lower because we're not so dependent on fossil fuels, it's also great for the environment. So as a doctor, I chaired a group called the Emissions Commission, which really looked at the link between keeping pollution, managing pollution, getting it decreased, and health. And what we found was that New Hampshire is so far behind right now on decreasing emissions, on electrification of our motor vehicles, trucks and cars, all of those things, that we're actually putting the health of people in New Hampshire at risk.
Also, one more issue I wanted to talk to you about, as Latha mentioned, that there has been a slight increase of people of color here in New Hampshire, although it's predominantly very, white state. And also in the government as well, there's not much role and appointments of people of color and from the diverse group. What is your take on diversity?
Well, I think, first of all, we are seeing the impact of a government that doesn't recognize the diversity that's already here in the state. During COVID, as I'm sure you're aware, people of color and minorities did not get the same attention as others with vaccination or the response to make sure people were protected against COVID. And so that's partially because they weren't represented in the administration. I would change that. I would make sure that my administration, whether it's my office or the heads of agencies, are much more reflective of the diversity that's here in the state. And by the way, not only does that help because people can look up at the commissioner of, say, Health and Human Services or the commissioner of Transportation and say, oh, they're like me. I can be that person one day. That's important, but also understanding when we all sit down at the table, what are the specific needs of each group? It's really much better when you have them represented at the table.
Sure. So now you have been in the Senate for 3 terms?
2 terms.
2 terms. Okay.
And in the House for 2 terms.
And in the House for 2 terms, yes. So what are some of your accomplishments in the Senate and House?
Well, it started, big ones were Medicaid expansion. We created a mechanism for lowering prescription drug costs. I had a bill that I worked through both chambers that made sure that we have some of the toughest standards for drinking water in the entire country. My bill removed dangerous chemicals from firefighting foam to protect our firefighters. And most recently, which I think is really a model for how we should be thinking about things, especially critical infrastructure, I put through a bill that the governor signed. He didn't invite me to the signing ceremony, but he did sign it, which is a plus. But the bill actually promotes manufacturing, not just in New Hampshire, but in the United States. One of the things I think we have learned is that we have to make sure the supply chain is accessible in the United States. So promoting small businesses, promoting manufacturing, promoting that supply chain so it stays in the United States and it is not, and this is also true for energy, it is not dependent on outside forces, is really great for being able to be certain that we maintain that economic stability and continued growth.
Now, safely you can assume that 1/3 Republicans here are going to vote for Republican candidate, but then you have 1/3 safely are going to vote for you. Now, the critical is the 1/3 independents.
Yes.
So what is your message is going to be to the independents why they should vote for you? I want to look in the camera and tell them. Yeah.
So I'm a doctor. I don't have one stethoscope for Republicans, one stethoscope for Democrats. Everybody gets treated the same. All of New Hampshire, no matter what your party affiliation is, will be my constituents when I'm governor. I have always won in a Republican district, precisely because everybody knows that I am working for each one of them, and I'm working for the state as a whole. Party affiliation isn't critical to me. What's critical to me are the needs of the people of New Hampshire, and they deserve a governor who's more focused on Granite Staters and on the people of New Hampshire than Chris Sununu, who is not focused at all on that. So we can do this together. All of these issues that we're seeing confronting the state are solvable problems. It takes all of us working together, and that's the way I work. I bring everybody together, irregardless of party.
Okay. Now, your message to the voters in general. What will be the one message you want to pinpoint to?
I've spent my entire career trying to help people. I was an EMT in high school. Been a doctor for 35 years. Now I've been in the legislature for 4 terms, 2 as the state rep and 2 as a state senator. I care very deeply about people, but I also know how to get things done, how to build bridges, and how to bring people together. This state, when we work together, when we solve those problems, this state will soar. And that's what I'm looking to do.
Excellent. Now, most of our viewership and audience is from South Asia and India.
Sure.
Just now I discovered that you love the ginger tea.
I do. I do.
So what is your message to South Asians here in New Hampshire?
My message number 1 is that we need more of you. We welcome South Asians in New Hampshire. I've worked very closely with the caucus. We can build a better New Hampshire together with people from all backgrounds, because that's how we get stronger. So I look forward to working with the South Asian caucus and the community to make sure that we are stronger, that you are a part of every decision that we make together, and that we use your strengths to make sure our communities across the state are stronger as we move forward.
Dr. Sherman, thank you so much for your time
Thank you.
and all the best.
Thank you.